A very good morning to my dear friends. This morning, I would like to bring your attention to an interesting topic, cognitive neuroscience, brain scan to lesson brand. Though this is a topic included in the syllabus of B.Ed course offered by Kannur University and some other universities in our country, I mean India. This topic will be useful for teachers and prospective teachers all over the world. And at the same time, this topic will be useful for all the people who are interested in educational psychology, because this is one of the latest trends in the field of educational psychology. Nowadays, people have started thinking about utilizing the results of this medical science branch called cognitive neuroscience in the field of education. Nowadays, people have started making some experimentations or experiments in this branch of medical science. And people have started thinking about bringing the principles, bringing the results of the study into the teaching learning process. So itself we have given a tagline, the brain scan to lesson plan. So let me bring your attention to this topic. And by the time of completing this video class, or by the time of going through this video class, you will be able to define what cognitive neuroscience is. You will be able to explain what the different aspects of cognitive neuroscience are. You'll be able to compare and contrast the contributions of philosophy, psychology, and cognitive neuroscience in the field of education. You'll be able to compare and contrast advantages and disadvantages of philosophy, psychology, and cognitive neuroscience in the field of education, I mean in the teaching learning process. So let me bring you to the topic. First of all, we have to define neuroscience. It's very simple. All of you might have heard about this definition. Neuroscience is the scientific study of the nervous system. Now, body, there are lots of nervous systems. There are different nerves in different parts of our body. And in medical science, there is a branch, neurology. You might have heard there is a specialist, neurologist, yeah. They are giving treatment for some problems which we face in our nerves or in our nervous system. So neuroscience is the scientific study of the nervous system. Then what is cognitive neuroscience? You can guess. Cognitive means something related to our brain. You might have heard cognitive domain, affective domain, yes, psychomotor domain. So cognitive is something related to our brain. Then you can, definitely you can guess. Your guess is correct. Cognitive neuroscience is the scientific study of the neural mechanisms which influence cognition. Well, cognitive neuroscience is the scientific study of nervous system in our brain, in our cognitive domain. It makes detailed study of the mechanisms of our nervous system in the brain. Cognition means using our brain for thinking and such things. And this cognition is on the basis of some mechanisms, some activities in the nervous system in our brain. So cognitive neuroscience is the scientific study of the neural mechanisms, or the mechanisms or the activities of the nervous system, which influence cognition, the functions of brain or the functions of the cognitive domain. Now, we have to look at the major concern of cognitive neuroscience. What is the area of cognitive neuroscience? What is the main area of cognitive neuroscience? Its major concern is to study and find out how the functions of the nervous system inside the brain help and affect the cognitive development of a person. See, as we grow and grow, different parts of our body develop. It should be developed. If your cognitive development is not there, sometimes you'll be behaving just like a small child, even after becoming a grown-up man. So there is development. Growth and development, you might have heard about growth and development. Growth is enhancement of the size, enlargement of the size in our physical structure, increasing of our height and such things. And development is something else. It is qualitative. It is enhancement of the hormones, the functions of some activities, some inside activities. So here, actually, cognitive development should be there. And the major concern of cognitive neuroscience is whether the nervous system inside the brain help and affect the cognitive development of a person. If it is so, then we can do something for better cognitive development of a person by enhancing or by bettering the functions of the nervous system inside the brain. So this is the major area of study or major concern of cognitive neuroscience. Then, why do we think about cognitive neuroscience in the field of education? Why? Why should we think? Because there is a firm belief, actually, there is philosophy and there is psychology. We have been arranging the educational system. So we have been organizing the educational systems on the basis of different schools of philosophy and psychology. Then is there any need of looking at the cognitive neuroscience? And this is because there is a firm belief that philosophy and general psychology, to an extent, have limitations in defining the factors behind cognitive development in a systematic way. Actually, we have to define cognitive functions such as intelligence, thinking, reasoning, decision making, and such things. And we are defining all these things. We have been defining all these things by utilizing the principles of philosophy and psychology. And people believe that there are limitations for psychology and philosophy to define or to explain the factors, the aspects, the variables which influence the functions of cognitive domain. So people have started thinking about something better, something more systematic, something more scientific. And cognitive neuroscience is the point where people have reached finally. Then what are the limitations of philosophy? You have told that there are limitations for philosophy. Actually, philosophy hasn't got any scientific base. It is based on speculations. Because philosophy is vision of life. And this vision of life hasn't got any scientific base. Actually, you are not creating your vision of life on the basis of some scientific facts. You are creating your philosophy on the basis of some speculations. Some speculations means something which you think so by making use of your own vision. It's highly subjective. You know that philosophy is different for different eras, different people, different individuals, different countries. We create our own philosophy on the basis of our own thoughts, on the basis of our own outlook, on the basis of our own experiences. And these experiences may not be true for others. We cannot generalize. It is not universal. Each country has got its own philosophy. Eastern philosophy is not just like Western philosophy. Philosophy is vision of life, and this vision of life is different for different people, different countries, different time, different eras. And because of this nature, philosophy often creates confusion too. So we cannot depend upon philosophy that much. It has got limitations. It hasn't got any scientific nature. It is hypothesis actually. We are reaching some conclusion on the meaning of life on the basis of some data, which on the basis of some experiences which we have. And people have got different dimensions of thinking. And by using a particular dimension of thinking, you are reaching a conclusion, you are reaching a philosophy of life, but this may not be true for another person. So philosophy has got some limitations. Then what are the limitations of psychology? Actually, you're telling that psychology is sense of mind, psychology is sense and such things. But see, it is not completely scientific. You cannot tell that it is completely scientific. It is not just like physics, it's not just like biology. It is not just like chemistry. Here again comes the subjectivity. Actually, it is based on observations. Nowadays, philosophy is considered as sense of behavior. And you are observing the external aspects of the behavior of a person. Maybe sometimes you may be intruding into the mental process of a particular person, but at the same time, you are not making any sort of scientific experiment. It gives prominence to covert behavior. That means external behavior. You're telling whether a person is intelligent or not by looking at his external capacity. You're telling whether a person is glad or sad, looking at his external behavior. And it is not fully objective. Just like philosophy, it has for subjectivity. And again, just like philosophy, it also creates confusion. So we cannot tell that, though it is considered as psychology compared to philosophy, still it is not a complete science, just like physics or chemistry or biology. So philosophy and psychology have got some limitations. We cannot tell that the results of the studies done by philosophers and psychologists are completely true in the modern world. If you are believing science, or if you have got some scientific attitude, you can never tell that psychology and philosophy put forth some concrete evidences. So they have got limitations. If they have got limitations, you will have to think about some other alternative. And that alternative is nowadays cognitive neuroscience. So people have started thinking that our increasing knowledge on brain and its functions should be utilized for the betterment of education. Actually, we have been using philosophical thoughts and psychological aspects for lots of years in the field of education. But now people think we have started studying about brain. We have started studying about the nervous systems in our brain. And we have discovered some aspects of brain. Then why shouldn't we use the possibilities of this study in the betterment of education, teaching learning process? And this is the new trend. This is the latest trend among the educationists. So according to Paul A. Howard Jones, though a few people did discuss the topic brain-based learning in the past too, it was not fully scientific. And so we are in need of a serious study on the basis of medical science. Yes, people started thinking about brain-based learning instead of making use of some philosophical principles or psychological thoughts. People in past too started thinking about brain-based learning, but it was not fully scientific according to Paul A. Howard Jones. So we are in need of a serious study on the basis of medical science. So we should study about brain, about the nervous systems of brain by making use of different aspects of medical science. And you know, nowadays the modern medical science is considered as something more systematic, more evidential, more accurate. And nowadays we are able to transfer even the heart. So medical science has got that much advancement. So we have to make use of that advanced facilities for studying more about the nervous systems of brain. And this may give a better result. This may give some wonderful result. This may give some fantastic result. And this is what Paul A. Howard Jones thinks. So actually a few instances for recent developments in cognitive neuroscience. And people like this Howard Jones started thinking about serious study of brain by using the facilities of medical science, by using the systems of medical science. And some some discoveries were there, discovery of number sense in brain. Now, people have discovered there is something called number sense in brain. So if we systematically use the study of this number sense in brain, sometimes we will be able to make all the students learn mathematics in a better manner. We have to study more. You have to study more about the cognitive functions or the functions of the nervous systems in the brain, so that we can make more students learn mathematics in a more easier way. Actually, mathematics is considered as something tough for something difficult for students. So this is something important. Then there is a discovery that there is some link between exercise and learning. If you give more exercise to your brain, actually not for your physical body, but if you give, just as you are giving exercise for your physical body, if you are giving more exercise or systematic exercise, or if you are creating some exercise pattern for brain, then maybe you are able to make your students learn more and more. Then again, re-examination of teenage behavior. Actually, we have been thinking about the teenage behavior, the adolescent behavior, on the basis of some principles introduced by people like Sigmund Freud. But if we think about the functions of hormones inside the brain, in the case of the teenage behavior, sometimes we may be able to have some wonderful outcome, because the students at the high school, actually high school students are more important, because the education which you give during that stage will be influencing the future of a person. And most of the teachers are facing problems to deal with students of high school classes, because they are adolescents. And still now, we are following the instructions, the principles given by psychologists such as Sigmund Freud, then Adler, Carl Jung, for defining and defining adolescence and its features. But now people have started thinking about the possibilities of the hormones, the influence of hormones in brain in the case of teenage behavior. And what is the scope of cognitive neuroscience? If cognitive neuroscience is developed more, then it has got a wide range, it has got a wide scope. It can study about the relationship between nervous system in brain and intelligence. And this is something important, because you know, all of you know that intelligence is something important in the case of learning. We tell that some people have got better intelligence, so they are able to learn more. And if you are able to find out the relationship between nervous system in brain and intelligence, sometimes you will be able to enhance the intelligence of those students who are considered to be poor by giving some medical treatment to the nervous system of the brain. And sometimes I think that this is going back to the traditional medicines. The Ayurveda medicine, the Ayurveda doctors used to give something called Brahmi and such things for enhancement of intelligence. I wonder whether we are going back to the traditional concepts. But here, if you are able to find out the relationship between the nervous system in brain and intelligence, sometimes you will be able to enhance the intelligence of the poor students too by giving some treatment, by giving some medicines which can enhance the nervous functions in the brain. And another scope is the relationship between learning disabilities and brain. If you are able to find out whether there is any relationship between brain and learning disabilities, if you are able to find out that the learning disabilities of some people, some students are because of some damage in brain or because of some lack of hormones in brain, then you can help such students overcome such learning disabilities by giving some medical treatment, some medicines. It's a scope. Then functions of hormones in the behavior patterns, as I told, the behavioral problems faced by the teachers from the adolescent students can be removed by giving some medicines. If you are able to find out these behavioral problems are because of some hormones, maybe because of excess of hormones or maybe because of lack of hormones. So if you're able to find out such a relationship, then you can overcome, you can help them overcome, you can eradicate such behavioral problems from the adolescent students, then your classroom will be more quiet, more calm. So you will be able to teach more effectively. Then possibility of medical treatment for learning related problems. You can think about medical treatment for learning related problems. If you have got a slow learner, then you can give treatment, medical treatment. Instead of giving counseling, guidance and counseling, such things. So these are the scope of cognitive neuroscience. Now, what are the steps to be taken for brain scan to lesson plan? We are thinking about brain scan to lesson plan. The first thing we have to do is collecting biological, social, and experiential evidences. Actually, first we have to collect biological evidences, then social evidences, and experiential evidences. We should not do anything at a sudden. First, we have to make deep experiments by collecting biological parts and by observing, or by making some scientific studies on social and experiential aspects. Then remove the gap between laboratory and classroom. Actually, sometimes we may be able to do something in the laboratory, but it should not be practical in classroom. And this gap between the principle which we are creating in the laboratory and the actual classroom experience should be removed. And then co-construction of the concept by scientists and educational experts. There should be a teamwork of scientists and education experts. See, a computer person cannot teach well if he knows PowerPoint. So there should be the computer person can teach how to create PowerPoints to a teacher, and a teacher can teach in an effective manner by making use of PowerPoint. So there should be a teamwork between an IT expert and a teacher. Without a teacher, an IT expert cannot do anything for the enhancement of education. And without the help of an IT expert, a teacher cannot teach effectively by making use of ICT inside the classroom. And just like this, there should be a teamwork of the scientists and educational experts to make this study of cognitive neuroscience applicable in the field of education. Then comparing and contrasting the studies on mind and behavior. Comparing and contrasting the studies on mind and behavior. We should make more and more studies on mind and behavior, and whether we can make use of medical treatment for eradicating some problems of our mind and such things. And these are some steps to be taken for brain scan to lesson plan. So see, I have told collecting biological, social, and experiential evidences. You can collect the brain of some people who have got better intelligence, and you can look at the features of the brains of such experts. Then you can look at the brains of some people who have got very poor intelligence. You can compare them, and you can make a study whether you can make the brain of a poor student or a poor person into the brain of an expert by making use of medical science and such things. So these are the steps which you can take for brain scan to lesson time. Thank you. Thank you very much.